This is Daily Blast Live. We're talking about what you're talking about.
You all ready for this?
This is a sham.
No. Y'all, just stop.
Get real.
Welcome to DBL. It is a good morning, and it is a morning that I am very proud of my friends. I'm glad to see you two here, because how many of you at home are sick and tired of hearing story after story, day after day about gun violence in America? Guns are the #1 killer of kids. But despite this chilling fact, real and serious legislation to tackle the problem seems more and more like a pipe dream. Well, today, here in Colorado, thousands of women from across the country are pushing for gun reform. Now, they're staging an all-day sit-in at the Capitol in Denver, right near us. They are demanding that Governor Jared Polis take action. Now, among the protesters is our very own Sam Shocker. Oh, I'm going to cry. She is there with a number of celebrities, including Lake Bell. And here is what they said about it on CNN this morning.
Children being murdered in their schools, or having teens kind of take a wrong turn on a driveway or knock on someone's door and getting gunned down is unacceptable.
It's unacceptable.
I think that's just sort of sensible.
We need to shape a new social norm. First of all, it's there. A lot of people are afraid to say the quiet parts out loud, that more guns equal more death. We are so ingrained in gun culture in this country that it's hard to say that and acknowledge it out loud.
For more on this, Sam joins us live from the Capitol. Thanks for being here, Sammy. We're so proud of you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So proud of you.
All right, Sam, you
Love
got
you.
this, girl. We love you. So talk to us about what it is you and all these other women are demanding.
Well, for one, I just want to acknowledge the mood here. There's a lot of energy, but it's very solemn. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of grief. A lot of people are holding pictures of their children that have died. There's been so much gun violence, not only in this country, but here in Colorado. And hearing everyone's stories, it's very solemn. There's a lot of hope, but there's so much trauma that, I mean, we have almost 19,000 Americans that have died from guns so far this year in 2023, and we're not even halfway through the year. So a lot of those people, whether they're survivors or whether they knew someone or whether it's their child, are here today. So it's hard to kind of talk about the energy knowing how much pain is around.
So
sorry, I'm focused on that, and I just lost an earbud, but that's okay. We're on live TV. But I do want to talk. I do want to answer your question, Erica. Sorry. We are here to ask Governor Polis. We have an executive order to ban guns, buy them back. That sounds crazy to say out loud because of how ingrained we are in our gun culture here in America. It's hard for me to say that out loud as someone who's always learned how to shoot a gun, who's supported the Second Amendment, all those things. My mind changed when guns became the #1 killer of teens and children. My mind changed after talking to all these people through canvassing, through the work that I've done, not only with Here for the Kids, but with Moms Demand Action, and seeing the shells of people, no pun intended, the ghosts of people after losing a loved one to gun violence or surviving a school shooting, or just people that have gone from lockdown drill to lockdown drill to lockdowns, going to the bathroom in buckets in front of their classmates and teachers. This is the reality that we live in America. That's radical. That's out of control. We have to change it. Even if we're just here today to shape a new norm, a new social norm, so people can slowly but surely start to realize that we here in America, this is a uniquely American problem, and we don't have to live this way. We don't have to live this way. We have rights too. We have rights to go to the mall, our place of worship, at school, and not look over our shoulder, or not be afraid that our child won't come home at the end of the day when you drop them off at school. We have rights too. So I've kind of changed my mind about protecting the Second Amendment, and now I'm more about protecting life, human life.
So obviously you've acknowledged the Second Amendment. People who are on the other side are calling what you're asking for unconstitutional. So why not ask for just a ban on assault rifles?
That would be a great win, Erica. But, you know, AR-15s, assault weapons, they only account for 3 to 5%. But it's more on the lower scale of gun violence deaths in this country. And until Uvalde, AR-15s were more affiliated with white kids. So it's a little bit of a dog whistle to say, let's just ban AR-15s and not worry about all the 97% of other gun deaths out there that affect disproportionately Black and brown and indigenous communities. So if we really want to end human suffering, if we really want to dismantle white supremacy, if we really want to be the great country that I believe we can, then we need to start reevaluating our obsession with guns. It's taking people's lives. 19,000 people so far this year alone, and we're not even halfway through the year.
That's ridiculous. All right, let me ask you this, Sammy. The governor has responded to your demands, and kudos because it's reached the governor, saying that he, quote, will not issue an unconstitutional order that will be struck down in court simply to make a public relations statement. He will continue to focus on real solutions. Sam, you have the floor. What is your response to that?
Listen, I get where he's coming from. Our legislators, our politicians, they don't get it. They don't think outside of the box. They're not imaginative. That's why we're taking a page from the 600 civil rights leaders back, with Selma, their march to Montgomery, where nobody thought that they could have their amendment. The Constitution is meant to change. We saw that with the civil rights movement. We've seen that with the abolishment of slavery. We've seen that with women being able to vote. We saw that with prohibition. So the amendments, the Constitution can change. We got to think outside of the box. We got to start looking at how other countries are living, where they can go wherever they want and not feel like that they're going to lose a loved one. I mean, for there to have countries have travel advisories to warning their citizens to not come to America because of the heightened risk that there will be a fatality due to our gun violence, we got to do better. And I would tell Governor Polis, we got to do better. You have 2 kids, Governor Polis, 19,000 people. How many more mass shootings than days? We have to do better. I like enough with the Constitution. I get it, but the Constitution's also supposed to change.
That's right. From one parent to another, I feel your pain. I've talked to you on this panel many times, and I felt it now, seeing it in action. We're all proud of you, girl. But you're talking to Governor Polis, but a lot of politicians do not agree with you. Let's take Nikki Haley, for example, who's running for president. She held a town hall on CNN yesterday, and she came out against red flag laws, saying, I don't trust the government to deal with red flag laws. I don't trust that they won't take them away from people who rightfully deserve to have them. So what do you say to that?
Listen, gun legislation works. If you look at the 10 safest states or the 10 safest counties, whatever it may be, gun legislation works. The more gun legislation, the less amount of death. And we actually have data. So for Nikki Haley and any politician who is in bed with the NRA, and I get it, like if we took money out of politics, I guarantee you a lot of these politicians would be singing a different tune, because then they wouldn't have to be worried about bankrolling their campaigns. But if we took money out of politics and if we really went down to brass tacks, we have decades worth of data that show us that less guns equal less death, that show us other countries we can look to. Yes, they don't have the gun obsession that we do here in America, but other countries have safe storage laws. They have doctors' evaluation checks. They have panels of people not only looking at the individuals, they have red flag laws, but they also look at who lives in the home. Okay, so if Al checks out, what about Al's partner? What about Al's roommate? That's what happens in other countries. That's why you don't see the mass amount of bloodshed in other countries that we have here. So unfortunately, Nikki Haley, I hear you, but you're wrong. We have actual data that tells us otherwise. And why are we continuing this vicious cycle? Columbine happened how many years ago? How many, 2.5 decades ago, and we're still having the same conversation? That's what's wrong with our country today. We've accepted this. We are so conditioned to just accept that mass death happens here in this country, and no one's doing anything about it. Moms have to step up and do something about it. Really?
Sam,
that's an embarrassment.
Sam, you're doing something about it.
Yeah, it's always
you're doing something about it.
Sam is doing something about it.
And a lot of people behind you are doing something about it. So
absolutely,
we appreciate you and we respect you.
And inconvenience does not equal infringement. If we can remember that with red flag laws, I appreciate that. Sam, you are just incredible. We are so proud of you.
Like I'm inconvenienced by having to do the show with you.
I don't want to be with Al. I don't want to be near him.
I'm a professional.
It's terrible. We want to wish you good luck today at the protest.
Thank you.
You have all our support. DBL Nation, for more information on Here for the Kids, you can check out their website at here4, and it's the number 4, thekids.com. You can also go ahead and scan this QR code. It's on your screen. It will bring you directly to the site. Thanks again, Sam. We'll be right back.
You're doing
Great job.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you.
DBL, this show is amazing.
There's a lot going on down here.
I would have been part of the Mile High Club.
Yeah.
So on point. But I'm going to have a conversation about what's happening now. I was telling you that the inconvenience does not equal infringement. Jon Stewart actually happened to remark that upon this today, and it's kind of going somewhat viral, and it's about these ideas of even common sense legislation is not in fact unconstitutional if you realize that, again, inconvenience is not an infringement on the rights of those with guns. It can go to the Supreme Court. You can disagree with me, but
my question when we first started talking about red flag laws, but isn't everything that has to do with licensure and privilege, isn't having 3 DUIs on your record a red flag to the DMV to not give you a license?
Yeah.
It's just it seems like we're talking about semantics in a lot of these situations.
I think semantics, but also selective applications.
Agreed.
I mean, it's selectively applied. A lot of things in this country are selectively applied, especially when it comes to socioeconomic status, gender, everything.
Yes.
Sexuality. It's all about how it is applied to those who have power versus those who don't. And what we're looking at, and I think the reason why it's so polarizing is because, of course, everyone there knows, and we all know, that what they're asking for isn't going to stand up to our current Constitution. But it's almost like you have to go with a more radical approach to a very radical problem.
That's right, Erica.
That's a great
Because
point.
there has to be a center, someplace to meet in the middle, and by asking for the little things, we're getting even less.
That's such a good point. It's
if you're going to
negotiation,
ask
right?
for exactly. So this is, I know some of you are saying one day isn't going to, they're going to be there all week. They're going to continue to show up and demand action, and hopefully this isn't just for Denver. They're going to go from state to state. So this is just the beginning of this movement.
Welcome back to DBL. My curl was in my hair. All right, there's a new documentary coming to Netflix this week, and it is called Arnold. And in it, Arnold Schwarzenegger opens up about the moment he told his now ex-wife, Maria Shriver, not only about his affair, but really the heart of this is fathering a child with their housekeeper. Arnold told Maria about it during a marriage counseling session in 2011. He said the therapist said to him that Maria wanted to know, straight up, if he was Joseph's father. Arnold said, quote, "I thought my heart stopped, and then I told the truth. Yes, Maria, Joseph is my son." Wow. Arnold was, of course, talking about Joseph Baena. He said that the news left Maria crushed, and she divorced him after that. So how do we think about Arnold being so transparent about how all of this went down? Erica, what do you think?
Well, I think there comes a time when you have to be the narrator of your own story, and for a very long time he wasn't. The way that this blew up, I just remember being on morning radio at the time, and as the information was coming in, and shortly after this story broke, then we started seeing pictures of Joseph, and there was so much public fodder for a very public family, but this was a very private event. So I'm not surprised that he's having this conversation. I also think that there seems to have been a concerted effort for him to have a relationship with Joseph, and this might be a part of that healing journey.
That's a good point.
I hope so, because it seems like, and obviously I know nothing about Joseph, but he seems like a good kid, and everybody needs that connection with their parents. And Erica, you know, you're talking about this seems like a very private thing, but I would say, especially since 23andMe, this has become more of a conversation that a lot of the public is having. A lot of people are finding out that they have brothers. I've met my sister. It is a thing. That song, Papa Was a Rolling Stone, that resonated with the culture for a reason, and it wasn't because it had a good beat. This is honestly like what's going on in a lot of families, and I think that we all have to understand that people are people. Things happen, no matter if you call it a mistake or a blessing or whatever euphemism you want to give it. It's happened, that person is here now, and now the only thing is how are we going to accept that person? How are we going to forgive the person that may be transgressed and move forward from that? But the idea of pretending like this isn't a thing, or wow, how could you? Come on.
Right, and co-parent. I just want to give it up to Maria Shriver. She's had to do a lot, and she has tried to maintain a very public face to this. She's also part of the Kennedy clan. And if you know the Kennedys at all, it's a lot of men cheating on their wives, and then this happened again. Jack Kennedy, Robert, you know, all these, and then Arnold. So it's just an interesting pattern that continues, and I'm sure she wished.
I'm sure it's humiliating.
He couldn't be more shameful, right, exactly. And I'm glad they're opening up, and hopefully this opens it up for other families. Coming up on DBL, our interview with William Shatner. He's telling us all about his wild new show, Stars on Mars. Was that good?
That was good.
Okay, thanks.
Pride Month is a celebration of visibility, equality, and self-affirmation for the queer community each June. There are many LGBTQ+ themed events in cities across the country. Streets lined with rainbow flags and flowers galore, and of course, huge parades around the country. While onlookers may see Pride as joyous and celebratory, a viral meme claims that the first Pride was a riot against police brutality. So let's verify. Did Pride Month start as a protest? Our sources are the Library of Congress and the ACLU. On June 28, 1969, police raided the Stonewall Inn, a popular gay bar in Greenwich Village, New York. That day marked the beginning of a 6-day standoff between police and LGBTQ+ protesters known as the Stonewall Uprising. Many patrons were brutalized and 13 people were arrested. According to the Library of Congress, quote, "The Stonewall Uprising was a tipping point for the gay liberation movement in the United States," unquote. At the time, homosexuality was defined as a mental illness, and according to the ACLU, some states' sodomy laws were rewritten to target same-sex couples. Bars and restaurants could get shut down for having gay employees or serving gay patrons. The ACLU of New York says, quote, "Police raids on gay bars were common, but on that particular night, members of the city's LGBT community decided to fight back, sparking an uprising that would launch a new era of resistance and revolution," unquote. The organization describes Stonewall as a protest against the NYPD. The first Pride March in New York City was held on June 28, 1970, the one-year anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising. So we can verify, yes, Pride Month did start as a protest. With your Verify, I'm Ariane Till.
It's time to boldly go where no celebrity has gone before. Mars.
If I can walk around Atlanta, I can walk around in Mars. Try me, alien. It's the final countdown.
You will embark on a daring mission.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Welcome back. That was a clip from the new show, Stars on Mars. Earlier, we spoke to the man who runs Mission Control, William Shatner.
Please welcome back to DBL, William Shatner.
Hello, sir.
Hello, everybody.
I want to talk to you about Stars on Mars. Now, your new show sends stars to a make-believe Mars. So tell me, what is the scariest thing about this experience?
You will embark on a daring mission.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Mars.
Flying 25 hours to the outback of Australia to a place called Coober Pedy, which is quite famous actually for people who are interested in opals. Being in the outback and living inside the earth, they claw out rooms with the machinery now. They used to dig them by hand and make them look like bedrooms, you know, with a bed in it and maybe a fan. But it's inside the earth because that's the only place that's livable in the outback of Australia. And it turns out that that's where it's going to be in Mars. We're going to have to claw out caves in Mars to allow human beings to live there with any equanimity.
Wow.
That's quite the undertaking. Yes.
So you've actually been to space. So I got to know, at 92 years young, do you have a bucket list? And if you do, what's the craziest thing on it, or was that the craziest thing on it?
My bucket list is to take a deep breath in the morning and realize I'm still alive.
Okay. Hey.
What that does is you say, wow, I'm glad to be alive.
Amen.
And look around me Look at my fingers, look at my relationships, look at the sky, look at that piece of bread.
That's right. That's a man that appreciates his life. I love it.
Well said. Okay, so I got to talk about Star Trek. You can't mention Star Trek without you as Captain Kirk. But before it became a hit, a lot of actors saw science fiction as the death of their career. Why didn't you see it that way? Thank God you didn't.
Blast regulations. Mr. Spock, I order you to assume command on my personal authority as captain of the Enterprise.
Wow, that's an interesting question. That used to be the case whereby if you did a series, it took you years to come back because the producers all thought that the audience would think of you as that character. And then, as I understand it, Steve McQueen did a series. He did a Western thing. Right? But when it was done, he did a movie. I think maybe that motorcycle movie. And he became a big star. And in that instant, everything changed. And actors said, no, I got to do a series to do movies.
Well, and a lot of shift of the pop culture, too, the idea that that was the transition, so to speak. And let's talk about that in terms of pop culture, because a lot of our viewers loved you on TJ Hooker. And I read that you did a lot of your own stunts on the show. So did you ever hurt yourself doing those infamous hood slides?
All the time.
Was there ever like a stunt you turned down? Like, look, I know we need it for the scene, but I'm not crashing through that window. Was there anyone you said, I'm not doing that?
No, that would be losing face in front of the most important audience, which was the crew. There was a movie that I did where I had to stand on top of a diesel engine it was supposed to go 40 miles an hour. So the stuntman did it at 40 miles an hour, and he was leaning into the wind, so his body was like an airfoil. So his feet would come off the train, off the surface of the engine, and they shot it a long shot. And then I said to the director, how are you going to do that in close-up? He said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, maybe I could try it. Maybe we could go at 10 miles an hour, and it would look. So he said, let's try that. So I got up on the engine, and we shot it. And I said, how did it look? He said, it looked like you were going 10 miles an hour. Well, let's try it at 20. And 20 looked like we ended up doing it at 40 miles an hour. It was an airfoil and around a curve. And when I saw the footage, when I saw the film, I thought how idiotic it was of me to attempt to do that. And looking at some of the TJ Hookers, I think, how idiotic of me. What is this macho thing that I was trying to do?
A man of your craft. DBL Nation, you can watch Stars on Mars, airing on Fox on June 5th. William, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Congrats on everything. We'll be right back.
Come back
thank
soon,
you.
man.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Amazon ships more than 1 million packages each day within the U.S. For years, if you ordered items directly sold by Amazon in the U.S. and you didn't like them, you could return them for free at any approved drop-off location. But some people say Amazon is changing its return policy, now charging $1 for all returns. Verify viewer Rick asked us if that's true. So let's verify using these sources. Amazon did recently update its return policy, but that doesn't mean you're going to have to pay a $1 fee on all returns. Instead, the new policy imposes a $1 fee if you make the return at a UPS store when a different free return location, like a Whole Foods Market or Kohl's, is closer to the delivery address. So we can verify, no, Amazon is not adding a $1 fee to all returns. So make sure to check the distance of the options closest to you. With your Verify, I'm Ariande Till.
Bees are a vital part of our ecosystem, but if you encounter a swarm of them, you'll want to know how to keep from getting stung. So our question is, if you're being attacked by a swarm of bees, should you jump into a pool of water? Our source is Nathan Chapman, museum specialist at the Schill Museum, and a 2016 article from Scientific American. Okay, so before we can answer this question, it's important to first understand the two types of bee swarms. Nathan Chapman says if you destroy or disturb a beehive, that's when you might get an aggressive bee swarm. If you notice the bees are just trying to make a new hive, you don't have to worry about them.
Aggressive swarm, get as far as possible. The other kind of swarm, like they're dividing, making new hives, remain calm and just try and stay out of the area.
According to the Scientific American, if you accidentally disturb an existing hive, you need to run immediately. If you can, try to get into an enclosed shelter like a car or run until the bees stop following you. Chapman says bees will do anything to stay near their hive.
If the beehive is really close to water, they're going to hang around that area for like very long time, several hours. Trying to get into water and like try and swim away, it'd be better to run around the pond on the outside because you're faster.
For the most part, Chapman says if you spot a swarm of bees near your home or office, they're likely just trying to build a new hive.
So leaving them alone, remaining calm, because that swarm can be there for a number of hours or up to days, depending on how long it takes for them to find a new home.
If you discover a swarm of bees have made a hive near where you live, Chapman suggests calling a local beekeeper to safely remove them from your property. So we can verify, no, if you are being chased by an angry swarm of bees, you should not jump in water to escape them. With your Verify, I'm Megan Bragg.
Welcome back. Do you want to have whiter teeth, but you don't want to deal with the messy strips or that sensitivity that goes with it? You're in luck. The brand that brought you Power Whitening Gel has created new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power. Effective tooth whitening can be achieved at home. All you do, add the Pro Whitening Gel to the toothpaste every time you brush. There's no change in your routine, no extra time, no effort needed. So in a clinical study, users saw an improvement of up to 8 shades after using the gel for 30 days. Smile Actives is safe, it's effective, and will even work on crowns, bonding, and dentures. Order today for a special buy one, get one free offer. Don't wait to get your brighter, whiter smile. Call 1-800-700-4040 or visit smileactives.com today. Now, before we go, a robbery suspect is going viral. He was seen in this surveillance video wearing a cardboard box over his head, okay, while trying to steal iPhones in Florida. But check this out. He briefly then removed the box to check his score, and this is again what led police to identifying the man.
I just feel like he just had written down for his plan, don't take the box off. And that was the only thing he had. He's just like, if I keep the box on.
You had one job.
Yeah.
One job.
Just keep the box on.
Keep the box.
Brilliant.
Or cut eye holes. We'll see you tomorrow.
Or don't do it.
Or don't do it. Yeah. Or don't do it.